As long as Avram Avinu was alive, until Esav was 15, Esav, as we know, disguised his true self. He fooled the world into believing that he was a tzaddik. And Esav took great pains to portray to his father Yitzchak that he is not only a mitzvah-observant person, but he is so meticulous in mitzvahs that he wants to do far more than what the halacha requires. And one of Esav's little schemes were to ask his father complicated questions about the observance of mitzvahs. He would come and say, "Father, I have such a problem." And what is it, Yitzchak would ask? And Esav would say, "How do you separate meiser from salt or straw? You have to separate 10%. Give it to Levi or give it to tzedakah, depending on the circumstances. How do you separate meiser from salt or straw?" Of course, by his question, Esav meant to suggest that indeed he fulfilled all mitzvahs and he wanted to do more than what was necessary. For meiser need not be set aside from salt and straw. Sometimes Yitzchak would ask Esav, "What did you do today?" And Esav would answer, "I was learning." "What did you learn?" And Esav would remember something he had heard when he passed the Beis HaMedrash, and he mentioned the subject. And that's how he was able to deceive his father. Now this question, how do you take meiser from salt? This is the symbol of deceit, of the Rosh who tries to paint himself on the exterior as a tzaddik. But of course this needs an explanation. There are Taryag mitzvahs in the Torah, and all 613 mitzvahs have guidelines. Esav could have picked any one of those 613 mitzvahs and extended a little further and say, "And what can I do over here even though it's not necessary?" Why then? The Chazal illustrates this question: how do I give meiser from salt as the example of someone who's trying to show off, who's trying to impress upon others that he is something which he really isn't? The Shem Shmuel explains that the emes, the whole Seder Abriya, all of creation, is designed in the form of a tafel and an ikar, the main thing and something that is secondary to it. Olam haba is the ikar, olam hazeh is a tafel. As Chazal say, hasken asmecha b'proizdar, prepare yourself in the hallway, which is the temporary world down here, kedei shetikanes l'traklin, so you can go into the huge hall, the real home, the real world, olam haba. Sheishes yimei hamasa, the 6 days of the week, are tafel to Shabbos. Look at pears. Look at most things that grow. They have a klipa. They have some type of a shell or a skin, which is the shomer for the peri, which guards the peri. Now, talking about a peri, the skin of the peri has a purpose if indeed it protects the peri inside. And the same is true for everything else. If someone understands that he's headed for Olam Haba, that's the only thing that's inevitable, and what he sets up for himself over here is going to be the kind of dwelling place that he's going to live in Olam Haba. He not only prepares his Olam Haba, but he's also mashlin his Olam Hazeh. Some of the Kedusha of the Olam Haba shines into Olam Hazeh. The Baron Kotler Zechayim Avracha once came to visit a very rich person to ask him for a donation. And he sat in his fancy office, almost sinking into the carpet until they made it to the huge glass table, and he sat on his oak chair and looked around at the curtains, the velvet, the chandeliers, the crystal. And at the end of the conversation, the Baron said, "Let me ask you something, Avid. Where is your Olam Hazeh? Where's your Olam Hazeh?" And the Yid, taken aback a little bit by the question asked, Rosh Hashiva probably means to ask me, where's my Olam Haba, not where's my Olam Hazeh. So the Baron said, "No, I'm asking, where's your Olam Hazeh? Your Olam Haba, well, that I can't tell you. That's up to you. You know how much tzedakah you give, how kind you are to others around you, how much you daven, how much you learn. But I'm troubled by a different question. Where's your Olam Hazeh?" And the man laughed. "My Olam Hazeh, look around. Look at this office. You know how much this suit costs that I'm wearing? What do you mean, where my Olam Hazeh is?" And the Baron says, "That's why I'm crying for you." He said, "If you would know the geschmack, if you would know the tainug, if you would know the feeling of sitting down and learning a Blat Gemara, then all of this would be such nonsense. Never mind your Olam Haba. You don't know what Olam Haba is. If a person sets himself up right, he begins to enjoy this world as well. Because that's the way it works. If you establish what the primary focus should be and what is secondary to it, You not only mashlim the major objective, but you also give life and enthusiasm to what surrounds it. If you live the entire week preparing for Shabbos, so not only do you appreciate Shabbos the way you're supposed to, but you bring a Kiddush into the entire week. Shammai would only buy things all week long l'kavod Shabbos. He went out on Sunday and he bought food l'kavod Shabbos. If he found nicer food, he said, okay, I'll put away the nicer food l'kavod Shabbos and I'll eat the first food. And that's the only way he ate throughout the entire week. Whatever he bought, he had to buy l'kavod Shabbos. By doing so, the Shem Shmuel explains, he brought in the Kedusha of Shabbos into every single day of the week. Now the truth is, the Gemara tells us in Masechtas Beya that Hillel had a different meaning. He would buy food each day for supper that day. Now the Gemara explains, Hillel agreed in principle that Shammai was right. It's much better to buy everything l'kavod Shabbos. But Hillel wanted to be mechazik his midas habetachan, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, and he said, I want to take one day at a time. But Reb Tzadok HaKohen, going off on a tangent for a moment, explains that both Shammai and Hillel had the same idea in mind. For Chazal tell us, Hillel would say to his Talmidim, excuse me, I have to go now and take care of a very important guest. And the Talmidim would follow him, and he went into the Beis HaMerchatz, to the bathhouse. And they said to him later, where's the important guest? And he explained that his body is a temporary dwelling place for his permanent neshama. And when someone comes to you for a while, or when someone is your host for a while, you have to treat him properly. And therefore I go every day to treat my body properly. And I wash it and I cleanse it. So you see, Hillel's whole mindset was that this world is very temporary. His body, in his eyes, was a temporary space suit, which is necessary in order to function down here in this world. And as long as he's down here, he must treat it properly. So even when Hillel would buy his food every single day for the day, he wasn't really buying food for himself, as Tzadok explains. He was buying food for his guest, which is his body. He viewed his body as something temporary, which is what it is. So both Shammai and Hillel were really doing the same thing, except through different ways. Shammai only bought food l'kavod Shabbos. Hillel only bought food l'kavod his guest. But both of them didn't just sit down and eat for the sake of eating. Both of them had the same outlook on life. It is temporary, transient. I am working on what is going to be permanent. I am working to prepare my Olam Haba. And by doing so properly, I'm also enhancing my Olam Haba. Agav, the Imriana says, the reason that Shammai only bought things l'kavod Shabbos is that the Gemara tells us, Kol mezenois of shaladim is kitzuvim loy Rosh Hashanah l'Rosh Hashanah. Whatever, all the money that a person is going to earn throughout the entire year is predestined from the previous Rosh Hashanah. There's a certain amount that you're given each Rosh Hashanah. Spend too much, you're not going to have enough of things that you need. Chutz me'etzoi Shabbos yom tovim and chinuch habanim. For those two things, the more you spend, the more you get. In other words, those two things are like an expense account. It doesn't come off your own cheshbon. Do your job properly, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says, the boss says, you're using the money good, it's a good investment. The more you spend right, the more I'll give you. The more someone spends sincerely for l'kavod Shabbos and for chinuch habanim, then the more he gets in that regard. It won't come off the set amount that was determined for him the previous Rosh Hashanah. By Shammai buying everything only l'kavod Shabbos, thinking indeed that if he doesn't find anything nice he's going to use it for l'kavod Shabbos, it turned out that not only his Shabbos grocery order, but the whole week, whatever he bought, was for Shabbos, which meant that nothing really ever came off his account. And that is why the Imri Emes points out from different places that Shammai was indeed very rich. But Akopanim, it still gets back to the same thing. By establishing what the primary objective is and what is secondary, and focusing on the primary objective, you are enhancing the secondary. Then you give the secondary a purpose. But if you confuse what the tafel is and what the ikar is, and you put too much emphasis on the tafel, on the exterior, then nothing lasts. Nothing makes sense. Now, this week, when little children bring home their arts and crafts, more or less, everyone brings home the same picture. You have little Yaakov and little Esav in their crib. Yaakov sitting there with a nice little siddur, and Esav with a big bow and arrow, or a machine gun, or a tank, or something along those lines. Yaakov smiling and holding on to his tzitzis, and Esav looks real mean and tough, and you don't want to get very close to him. So Esav is depicted as the Rasha, the wicked one. Chazal tell us that Esav did have some virtues. Maybe he didn't do it sincerely, but he did do it, like the mitzvah of Kibbud Av. He did honor his father. And because of that, we suffer terribly, because that chus stands in his stead for many, many centuries. The Midrashim tell us that when Esav realized he lost the bracha, Esav shed 3 tears, one from his right eye, one from his left, and one which remained suspended in his eye. As compensation, Hashem gave him possession of Har Seir, which is forever blessed with rain, and dominion over 100 provinces. The Midrashim also tell us that because of the first tier we lost the first base in English. Because of the second tier we lost the second base in English. Because of the third tier we could have chas v'shalom lost the third, and somehow Esav's cry stopped just short of that. His sincerity, whatever sincere emotions were rising to the surface over here, petered out, and the third tier never came from his eye. The third base in English should be saved. And whatever this means, it's hard to understand, but Lamaisa, it seems that every good deed that Esav did causes us a lot of trouble. So, between you and me, is it bad that Esav is a Rasha? Had Esav been a tzaddik, we would have been in real trouble. So why do we make it sound like, oh, Esav is so wicked, Esav is so bad, look how much trouble that almost caused us? Adarabba, fragt the Rebbe Rabbuna. We should thank Esav 1,000 times over for being bad. Had he done more mitzvahs, we would have not been able to withstand his chusin. Now, Lamaisa, Esav had a clear, he had a free choice. Even though Esav was already born, all red and all hairy, that just meant he had tremendous power. David HaMelech was also born red. He could have directed that power to good. So is this true? Are we to draw a conclusion over here that had Esav elected to use his powers for good, we would be in trouble? Dr. Rebbe Rabbuna, no, chas v'shalom. Just the opposite. Had Esav directed his power to good, and that Esav accepted the fact that he was a tuffle to Yaakov, we would have been in a higher madrega, and Esav himself would have gained immensely. Yaakov would have come to a shleimus easier, we could have avoided Golis, and Esav himself would have been enhanced tremendously. But Esav did not view himself as a tuffle to Yaakov. From day one, even prior to day one, Esav would have to force himself out first. Esav never accepted his role that he was going to be secondary to Yaakov. As a result, even Esav's mitzvahs were done with the intent to impress, you see, I'm better than Yaakov. There are malachim created by my mitzvahs. I demand that these mitzvahs punish Yaakov. I demand that they protect me and hurt him. Yes, it is true. Chazal tell us whatever little mitzvahs Esav did, is a problem for us. But had he done those mitzvahs with the right attitude, had he accepted his role of being secondary to Yaakov, not only would we have been better, he himself would have been far better off. Whatever reward he has now is only a detriment to us. It's transparent. It's temporary. It's going to wither away. Had he done his mitzvahs as a tuffle to Yaakov, we would have gained, and his reward would have been one of shleimus, one that is everlasting. Now Yitzchak Avinu wanted desperately to bless Esav. Why? Because Yitzchak was hoping that by being mamshach kiddusha on Esav, it would manifest itself in Esav doing more mitzvahs. What right did Yaakov have to steal the bracha from Esav? Maybe Yitzchak's bracha would have had a positive effect on Esav. It would have brought Kiddush into Esav's heart. And the answer is, the way the Shem Shmuel explains it, Yitzchak was unaware of Esav's tumah of gaiva. That b'shvili nivra olam, the world was created for me, and anything else is tuffle to me. I am the primary purpose of everything. Once a person has that type of attitude, then it's very, very hard to correct. Because give him Kiddusha, and in turn he does more mitzvahs, so Adarabah, he's going to become a bigger Balgaiva. He's going to say, for sure the world was created just for me, and everyone else must listen to me. And how dare anyone get in my way? Yaakov knew this. Yaakov knew that because Esav's attitude was to take whatever Kiddusha, whatever small mitzvah that falls in his lap, and to use that only as creating himself as a greater idol, So the mitzvah that he would do it just backfires. It would only cause trouble for us. It doesn't really make Esav any better. The Zohar HaKadosh says there are certain dark clouds that regardless of how powerful the light that is going to try to pass through, it will get lost into those clouds. And those are the Sheva Paris Harois, the 7 meager cows in Paris' dream. That regardless of whatever went into them, they stayed the same emaciated cows. This, as the Zohar, is the tumah of Gaiva. Because through Gaiva, even if he does do mitzvahs, it makes the Gaiva worse. He thinks now he's for sure greater than someone else. So what are you going to do? Give him more Kiddusha? He's going to think he's even greater. And that's why Yaakov knew that the brachas to Esav are not going to change him. It's going to make him worse. Now the Medrash says at the end of Pashas Vayishlach, this is a mashal. You have growing on the field all sorts of things that aren't food. The hay, the straw, and so on. Different peels around the grain. And each one argues and says, because of me the field was planted. I am the purpose of all of the farmer's work. And the actual wheat or the actual grain says, just wait, the time will come, you'll see. We're going to be separated. You'll be cast about and I'll be converted into food. And then we'll know why the field was planted. The Yom Ha'olam all argue, they say, the Medrash says, B'shvuleinu nivra olam, the world was created for me. And Klal Yisrael says, I know, you are most of the field now. But the time will come and you'll see. Continue wait until that day comes. And then we shall all know what is the primary focus of the world and how everyone else has to fit into it. And this is why Esav's question, his deceitful question, his attempt to elude Yitzchak into a world of I am a tzaddik, is precisely focused on this issue. How do you give meiser from straw? The Yom Ha'olam, they are the straw, the Shem Shmuel explains. In reality, you don't give meiser from straw. Why not? Why don't you have to separate meiser from straw? Because the straw is not the food. Yep. Esav also asked, how do you give meiser from salt? One is not obligated to separate meiser from salt. Why? Because again, the salt is not the primary focus. The salt is secondary to enhance the taste of the food. But this was Esav's position. He refused to accept the fact that somehow his tafkid was to enhance Yaakov. That was not going to happen. Not in Esav's eyes. And therefore he constantly alluded to this by saying, how do you take off meiser from the straw? How do you take off meiser from the salt? I want to be the ikar. I want to be the primary focus. And if my job is to help someone else, I may be enhanced through that, but I'm not interested. The Shem Shmuel concludes, every person should learn from this, that we on our own really don't amount to much. But when we connect ourselves, when we associate ourselves as part of Klal Yisrael, and we want our mitzvahs to be joined into the overall chus of Klal Yisrael, then Klal Yisrael gains and we gain. Take a look. Sheni, Shlishi, Revi, Chamishi, Shishi, and Shvi of this week's Parsha. Each pasuk ends with a bracha. It's the only Parsha in the Torah this way. Parshas Toldos is the Parsha of bracha. But in order for the blessing to mean anything, our attitudes first have to be set into place. If our attitude is, B'shvili nivra olam, the world was created for me, then the bracha is, on the contrary, will just make things worse. But if we view ourselves as a vehicle to help others and to enhance the lives of those around us, the brachas have a very real meaning. Rav Shayla Kerestira, Zechem Levracha, was an Ish Kadosh Ad Miyai, about Moises, about Ruach HaKodesh. His tefillos obviously had a special place in Shemayim. He was initially a Talmud of the Liska Rebbe. He was more than just a Talmud. He had completely devoted himself to his Rebbe. He was mevatel himself to his Rebbe. So much so, when the Rebbe of Liska passed away, there was an issue amongst the Hasidim, who should take over? The Rebbe of Liska had no sons, but he had sons-in-law, and many of them were indeed great Talmidei Chachamim and great Tzaddikim, and indeed they began their own rabbinical courts and Hasidic courts. And while many did flock to them, it seemed that the majority was slowly turning to Rav Shayla. Although Rav Shayla himself was not a blood relative, or for that matter, any relative of the Liskadeba. The sons-in-law, fine people in their own right, felt that it was not proper for Rabbi Shaila to remain in town, that it was taking away from their ability to assume the reins of leadership. But their position on this didn't quite stop the people from coming to Rabbi Shaila, seeking his guidance, his blessings. But Rabbi Shaila, always the Ish Shalom, went to the Gedolei Hadar, and he asked whether or not he should leave town. As far as he was concerned, he was prepared to leave. His Chassidim, those close to him, begged him not to. The sons of Rav fired off a very harsh tshuva on Rav Shaila's behalf, a tshuva that appears in the Shalos Teshuvas Divrei Chaim, Chesed Mishpat Chelik Beis Sin and Lamed Dalet. I'll quote one part of it. The sons of Rav writes, Lo Yadati Shum Tzedek Yerusha Bezeh. I don't see any claim to inheritance in regard to this issue. Look at the founders of Chassidus, writes the sons of Rav. Who took over after the Baal Shem Tov? It was not the Baal Shem Tov's son. Rather, it was Rav Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mizrich. No relation, despite the fact that the Baal Shem Tov had a son who was a great tzaddik, Rav Tzvi. Rav Tzvi actually did assume the reins of leadership, and one day he took off his royal talus and gave it over to the Mizrich Maggid. He said, my father just came to me in a dream and instructed me to give you over the leadership. You are better suited to lead the people. That did not mean that Rav Tzvi, the son of the Baal Shem Tov, was not a great tzaddik in his own right. But his father came to him and told him that the Mizrich Maggid would do a better job leading the people. Don't hold your breath for that to happen again. There was once a dispute amongst different brothers who should take over after a Rav, and one of them came to the Satmar Rebbe Zechar Lebracha and said that my father came to me in a dream and said I should be the one. So the Satmar Rav said, how come you didn't come to your brothers and tell them that? In other words, maybe it was your own aspirations that came to you in a dream and told you you should be the one, not your father. So the sons of Rav argues. Look at the beginning of Chassidus, Rav Dov Ber, the Mizrich Maggid took over after the Baal Shem Tov. And who were the great leaders of Chassidus after the Maggid of Mizrich? The Barditcheva, the Moranayim, the Orhamohir. None of them sons-in-law, despite the fact that many of them respectfully did have sons, great tzaddikim. And therefore the sons of Rav said his opinion was that there is no taina of Yerush over here. Rav Shaila need not leave Liska, which eventually he did anyhow to avoid the controversy. But many disagreed with the sons of Rav. There were many Rabbanim that felt that the concept of Yerusha in terms of leadership of Klal Yisrael has a place. Does not the Torah say b'feish in regard to the Kohen Gadol that the son of the Kohen Gadol has the first right to take over if he is royal lekach? If the son of the Kohen Gadol is the person that is fit for the Kohen Gadol, then he has the first claim for the position more so than someone else, because he is the son of the Kohen Gadol. Don't we see in regard to Malchus and to the passing of one king to another, that it goes from king to son? Don't Chazal tell us that if someone has devoted a life to Torah, and his son has devoted a life to Torah, and his grandson has devoted his life to Torah, that Torah machzeres alachsan yishala, that this Torah will remain in the family indefinitely, provided that the subsequent generations are willing to learn. Like the famous marshal of Reb Chaim Volozhiner. True, he says, as the Gemara says, if there is a chain of Talmidei Chachamim, Torah machzeres alachsan yishala, the Torah returns to its inn like a traveler who has one innkeeper that he trusts, and will walk who knows how many miles out of the way only to go back to that inn. But if when he returns to the inn, suddenly one day there's no heat, suddenly all the windows are smashed out, suddenly it's raining in, and there's no food, he won't come back. So if there are two inns, and both are giving adequate service, he'll go back to the one that he's used to. But provided there's an inn to come back to. So if someone has a heritage, someone has fathers and grandfathers who are Talmidei Chachamim, there is something to it. The Gemara says so b'feish. It is easier for him to learn. There is a certain B'siyata D'Shmaya. There's a certain Kiddusha that is in his blood, provided that there is an inn to come back to, provided that he does something on his own. Perhaps, however, this issue of whether royal blood plays a role in the leadership of Klal Yisrael is not really an issue at all. Elu v'elu divrei Elokim chai. The opinions that say the son comes first and the opinions that argue to the contrary don't necessarily contradict each other. And I believe that's what the Kedushas Levi is telling us in this week's Pash. We all know Yitzchak Avinu stood in one corner and he was mispowered for a child. Rivka stood in a different corner and she was mispowered for a child. As the pasuk says, "V'yetra Yitzchak l'Hashem l'noichach ishtay." Yitzchak davened opposite his wife. Rashi tells us, "Ze'oimed bezavi Yezu mispawel." He stood in this corner and he davened. "V'zuay medis bezavi Yezu mispalel." So she stood in a different corner and davened. And then the pasuk says, "Vayaser loy Hashem." Hashem listened to him, to Yitzchak's tefillah. And Rashi makes it very clear: loy to him, but loy lo not to her. Why not? She'ein doime, because you cannot compare, explains Rashi, tefillah tzaddik ben Rasha, the tefillah of a tzaddik who is the son of a Rasha, the tefillah tzaddik ben tzaddik, to the tefillah of a tzaddik who is the son of a tzaddik. Lefikas, therefore, loy, Hashem listened to Yitzchak's tefillah, but loy lo not to her. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. There hasn't been a class yet that I've learned this Rashi with where someone didn't pick up his hand and ask, but shouldn't her schus be greater? Yitzchak grew up in the house of Avraham Avinu. He grew up in a house that was fertile with Kedusha. He grew up in an orchard of Tahara. Rivka grew up in the depths of Tumah, in the worst environment of conceit and thievery. If Rivka was a tzedekah despite her chinuch, shouldn't that make her tefillah more chashuv in Shemayim than that of Yitzchak, who was sort of trained into it? Doesn't the tzaddik ben Rasha deserve more credit than the tzaddik ben tzaddik? And I've always answered, but I never really had a good answer. Not until I saw this Kedushas Levi this week. Kedushas Levi basically asks, why does the pasuk make it sound like there was some type of independent tefillah over here? Each one had gone off into a different corner to be mispal, as if to say, let's have a race, to say whose tefillahs are going to be answered. Why does the pasuk create this type of a scene? Yitzchak in one corner, Rivka in the other corner, they're each davening. And who does Hashem listen to? The winner is Yitzchak. What does it sound like? Answer the Heilige Barditcher. Yitzchak assumed a position before he started davening. His position was that his own schusim are not enough, that his own merits are not adequate for Hashem to listen to his tefillos. He doesn't have enough chusim. Opposite his wife. What does that mean, opposite his wife? There wasn't a challenge over here between Yitzchak and Rivka as to whose tefillos were going to be answered. Just the opposite, says the Kedushas Levi. Yitzchak's whole basis of tefillah was Rabbeinu Shalayla. I know I am not worthy that you should answer my tefillos, but in the schus of my wife, what a great tzedekah she is. How can you turn her down after her mesiras nefesh to you? And presumably Rivka herself was mispawel in the same vein. She stood on the other corner, opposite her husband, not necessarily facing her husband, but opposite her husband, and said, Rabbeinu Shalom, I know my schusim aren't adequate. They don't go far enough. But what about my husband Yitzchak? Within this context, the pasuk says, Hashem listened to Yitzchak's tefillah. Loi v'loi la. Why? L'fisha ein adoin l'tefillah ben tzaddik l'tefillah tzaddik ben Rasha. Because Yitzchak made a point of saying that I'm only mispawel, using my wife's chus, because I don't have enough chusim, so therefore the Torah has to clarify, explains the Kedushas Levi, that indeed Yitzchak was answered in his own chus, because he's a tzaddik ben tzaddik. But let's think a little bit into what the Barditcher is telling us. Chazal are not taking anything away from Rivka. Chazal are not taking anything away from her mesiras nefesh, of becoming a Rivka, of becoming a mother of Klal Yisrael. despite her environment, despite who her father was. On the contrary, in many places in Chazal, you see just the opposite. Her schutzing of being able to stay a Rivka despite where she came from is an amazing thing. And indeed, that's what she was able to be, the mother of Klal Yisrael. But despite that, on the other side of the coin, there is a certain validity to the concept of tzaddik ben tzaddik. When? When does the tzaddik ben tzaddik have a certain koyach hatfilah, a certain key that perhaps someone else does not have? If the tzaddik ben tzaddik assumes Yitzchak's attitude. Yitzchak's position was, l'noy zakeshtoi, l'vayim shalayla, my tefillas. What chusim do I have? But my wife Rivka, her great mesiras nefesh, becoming a Rivka, growing up in the house of Psul with a brother like Lavan, the pit, the bottom, surrounded by Avodah Zarah and Tumah, and yet she turns out to such a great tzaddikus. How can you not answer her tefillah? The Rebbeinu Shem says, Yitzchak Avinu, that is your attitude. Or Bazar, your tefillahs are going to be answered. Then you have established the right to a certain koyach hatfilah that is exclusive to a tzaddik ben tzaddik. There's a midah keneged midah over here. If the tzaddik ben tzaddik charges in and says, make way, I'm here, I'm the tzaddik ben tzaddik, then you would not have a result of a yeter loy Hashem. But if the position of the tzaddik ben tzaddik is, unfortunately, even though my father was such a great tzaddik, who am I? How can you compare me to those who have had the mesiras nefesh to remain so pure, to become such a great kadosh without the kind of environment that I was raised in? If that's the attitude of the tzaddik ben tzaddik, then indeed he evokes automatically by default the power of tefillah of a tzaddik ben tzaddik. And that is why before the pasuk tells us that Hashem indeed listened to Yitzchak's tefillah, because of his yichus, because he was a tzaddik ben tzaddik, the pasuk first describes the scene to give us the key when indeed the concept of tzaddik ben tzaddik works. When it's a yeter Yitzchak l'Hashem l'noy chachishtoi. When Yitzchak in his tefillah believed and presented the case to others, I'm not worthy, but my wife Rivka, in her schutz, we should have children. The more a person feels he is not worthy of being answered, then the greater schutz he has to be answered. In this regard, and the Slanim Esfarim, we basically find this word as well. In this regard, Yitzchak won out. Because the problem with tzaddik ben tzaddik is the possible gaiva that distorts the tefillah. Yitzchak, however, mastered over that, and on the contrary, suggested that because he's a tzaddik ben tzaddik, therefore he doesn't have the schutz that his wife Rivka does. So yes, was there some type of a challenge over here between Yitzchak and Rivka? Yitzchak in one corner, Rivka in the other corner? There was. But it wasn't a challenge as to who was greater. It was a challenge as who can present the case more so that the other one is greater. Rivka cried, help me in the schutz of my husband, and Yitzchak cried, help me in the schutz of my wife. And he really meant it. And because he was the tzaddik ben tzaddik and really meant it, that his wife's tefillah is more worthy than his, that is why he took the potential of chas v'shalom being conceded and turned into the basis of his humility, and thus that was the key to the tefillah being answered. Precisely because he was a tzaddik ben tzaddik, and despite that, attributed any possible answering to their tefillahs on Rivka's chus. So when the tzaddik ben tzaddik assumes a position, oy vey, what an awesome responsibility there is upon me. I have to live up to my reputation. I have to live up to my assignment of helping people, of maintaining a level of Kiddusha and Asmod and Yireh Shamayim that goes along with my family that my fathers have given over to me. That's the real tzaddik ben tzaddik. The royal blood that flows in his veins are the source of anchoring the Kedusha to him. His tefillos take preference. And indeed, I can attest to many such a tzaddik ben tzaddik that you can feel the aspect of Kedusha in their personality, precisely due to their bittul. Who has the Kedusha? Those that say, look who my father was. How can I continue this? How can I live up to this? But if the attitude is the opposite, make way, I'm here, and I'm a tzaddik ben tzaddik, look at my yichus letter, that's just the opposite, that it's self-defeating. The Sanzruk once told someone who he felt was in the latter class. He told him that there once was a peasant who got drunk, and his fellow peasants wanted to pull a spitzel on him, and so they dressed him up in galach clothing. When he woke up in the morning, he was wearing galach clothing, so he thought, maybe I turned into a galach overnight, maybe I had some type of revelation, I was elevated to a new status. He walked on the street, people were bowing to him. He really believed it. Then he decided, must be some type of a prank. So he decided he would make a test. What would the test be? He was going to go to the library and open a Bible, and he never knew how to read. If indeed he could read, it's a sign. Then in Hashemayim they elevated him. If he can't read, someone's pulling a prank on him. So he went to the library and he opens the Bible, doesn't understand the word, doesn't know whether to hold it right side up or upside down. So he says, it's just a prank. He walks outside, he sees people are bowing down to him, stepping aside to him. So he decides, I'm really worthy of this. I don't know how to read. So he concluded the other galachim don't know how to read either. And so the Sanzarov's message to this individual could have not been any more clearer. There was a certain town in Eastern Europe that was known for its marketplaces. You can really get a good bargain there. Unfortunately, you can really get fooled over there as well. The Sachrim were sometimes, or should we say some of them, were a little bit less than honest. And although very often you can get a very good bargain and good buy, it happened more than once that a person came home and found out that what he bought wasn't exactly what was delivered to him. These merchants were quick, experienced, and sometimes outright liars. And that's what happened, unfortunately, to a Talmud of the Chofetz Chaim. This Talmud Radin went there to buy a pair of shoes, and he paid for the most comfortable shoes he could find. And he came home and he opened the box, and there was the paper that it was wrapped in, and there was the box, but there were no shoes there. Nothing at all. And when he came back and argued with the merchant that he had brought home an empty box, the merchant began to laugh. And the other merchants came alongside him and started to laugh as well. Oh, sure. I just sold you a pair of shoes. Now you claim the box was empty. You want another pair of shoes? Doesn't work that way. You saw me put the shoes into the box. Why are you trying to cheat me? The merchant said. Unfortunately, the young lad saw him put the shoes into the box. What he didn't see was where the merchant switched boxes. Now, when he came back and told the Chofetz Chaim what happened, the Chofetz Chaim was obviously upset about the whole situation. He was also upset at the Talmud. The Chofetz Chaim wanted the Talmud to be more alert, not to be so naive. He shouldn't have fallen into this trap. But the Talmud asked, doesn't it say that a Yid is supposed to be a Tam? Yaakov ish Tam Yoshev Eholim? That it's an advantage, it's a Maila, not to be so cunning, to be a simpleton? So the Chofetz Chaim told the Talmud, in the pasuk it says, Tomim Tiyam Hashem Elokecha. With Hashem Elokecha, with the Rebbeinu Shem, is supposed to be a Tam. Don't be too smart. What does Rashi say on Tomim Tiyam Hashem Elokecha in Parshas Shayftim? Remember as a little child, my father's Kanazach used to make me chaz of this Rashi Baal Peh, and indeed everyone should. Al Tacher Acher Hasidus. The pasuk there is talking about various forms of witchcraft and kishuv, where a person tries to dwell into the future. Don't, the Torah says. Don't try to think about what's going to be tomorrow. In terms of your view on tomorrow, just hope to Hashem that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will guide you in the right direction. And anything that happens to you, anything that develops, be makabel with a tamimus. I don't have to understand everything. Whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is good. the us, and if you can master that, says Rashi, Tia Imay V'Chelkai, then you are with him, and you become part of the Rebbeinu Shalom. If you have to be too smart, if you have to understand, if you have to know what's going to happen tomorrow and why, you're not going to be part of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. The way you become part of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is Tamimus. I'm a Tam. I don't have to understand everything. I'll do what I have to do today and hope that a Kadosh Baruch Hu guides me to do what I have to do tomorrow. But that, said the Chofetz Chaim, is Im Hashem Alekacha, Tanim Tia Im Hashem Alekacha, but when you deal with other people, you cannot be a fool. You have to be realistic. If you loan somebody money, then you're obligated al pi halacha to do so either in the presence of witnesses or to receive a receipt from him. If not, you, the lender, is over in Aveda. The Aveda that are listening, Iber Leisite Michshal. Don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. Chazal interpret this pasuk to mean don't allow someone else to sin. And if you're giving someone else an opportunity to cheat you when you could avoid it, that doesn't justify his cheating. That doesn't mean it's not an avera for him to steal. But you are also faulted for allowing him to do so. So if you loan someone a nickel or a dollar or a quarter, do you have to get a written contract from him? There's another solution. You can make up in your mind. If you're Michael him, if he doesn't pay you back, so you're not over listening either. But if you're not Michael him, if the amount is significant, or whatever the case may be, you insist on getting that back, and you know you're not going to forgive him if he doesn't, then you have no right to give it to him unless it's substantiated. Why don't we just say, be a Tom? Don't worry about tomorrow. Do what you have to do today, and the Eibishter tells him. The answer is what the Chofetz Chaim is telling us. Tamer tia im Hashem alekacha. That is the attitude we are supposed to have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In terms of people, we're supposed to be polite, we're supposed to be giving, we're supposed to be willing to be mevater. On the other hand, we're supposed to be realistic. Chofetz Chaim was once stranded in a certain town for Shabbos we didn't expect to be. And he had a satchel with money. And he came into the Rav's study, and he wanted to leave the money with the Rav. And the Rav noticed the Chofetz Chaim was looking here, looking there, looking out the window, looking in the hallway. He asked the Chofetz Chaim if there's anything he can do to help him. The Chofetz Chaim said, no, can you please watch this money for me over Shabbos? And the Rav said, of course. After Shabbos, the Chofetz Chaim left without picking up the money. So the Rav chased after him and said, Rebbe, the money. Chofetz Chaim said to him, I'll tell you the truth. It was right before Shabbos. I was looking around to see if there were any witnesses there. I wanted maybe to sit down and write a shtar, but I saw there were minutes to this man. So I decided, instead of violating the Relif Ne'iver Le'Siti Michshel and giving someone, mind you, this Chashav Rav, giving someone money without substantiating it, so I had no choice, but I was Michael you the money. So once I was Michael the money, I don't want to pick it up. So the Rav, taken aback a little bit, said, fine, so the Rebbe was Michael the money to me, so I'm returning it. You gave it to me b'matana, so I'm giving back a matana. Dr. Chofetz Chaim, but I don't take presents. Never in my life did I take any presents. Sayna matanas yichya, that's my policy. So once I gave it to you as a present, I can't take it back. So the Rav, thinking fast, and I had an eitzah. I officially declare this ownerless. It's hefker. Put it on the floor. He said, Rebbe, now you can take it. It's not a present from me to you. Never Chofetz Chaim. Kidarke b'kodesh was noheg l'smim b'shir sadin. However, it gives us an idea of the concept. Now the pasuk says, "V'Yaakov ish tam yoishev oichol." So Rashi says, what does tam mean? Tam, kiliboy kaintiv. Whatever was in his heart, that was in his mouth. He didn't say one thing and think something else. He didn't express one feeling when really there was a different emotion governing his heart. What you heard is what he was. Misha ain't a charis, someone who was not sharp, l'remois, to try to fool or lie someone, kari tam. We refer to him as a tam. I'm sure we've all heard the expression, he's a tmimistic person. In fact, the Shinavarav, in Yaakov's dealings with Lavan, he didn't seem so tmimistic. Yaakov seemed pretty sharp. And when push came to shove, Yaakov Avinu had plenty of tricks in his bag as well. And when his wives addressed this issue, according to the Medrash, to Yaakov Avinu, How come you're giving our father a taste of his own medicine? You're supposed to be the tzaddik. Why are you switching things around? So Yaakov quoted the pasuk, "Im nover tisbarav, im ikesh tispato." If you're dealing with that kind of a person, then you deal with him with the language that he understands. Dr. Shinavadov, that is tied to the pasuk, Ish Tam, Yoshe V'Hala. Because it's a steer. The term Ish represents power, chashivus, an ability to dominate. Tam, exactly the opposite. The tmimistic, a sweet little person, doesn't know much about the world, just goes his own way. So how could you say Ish Tam? Dr. Shinavadov, this is how to touch the pasuk. The Yaakov Ish Tam. He was a master to control his midah of tmimus. In other words, Yaakov by nature was not necessarily such a tmimistic, a naive person. By nature, his cunning could have been awesome. He was able to deal with Lavan and survive. He was able to deal with Lavan and withdraw what was his, where everyone else lost what was theirs when they dealt with Lavan. And that's because even though Yaakov Avinu, his entire life, was a nice yeshiva bacher, sitting in the Beis HaMedrash learning, always a smile, always so gentle, but he was Ishtam. It wasn't because by nature he didn't know any better. He was a master to control his tamimus. In every aspect of his life, he applied the concept of tamim. Tamim tiyem Hashem alekecha. That is how he dealt with Hashem. That is how he spoke to people. But it was a switch that he can turn on and turn off. And if he had to deal with someone who was something less of a tam, then he knew how to turn off the switch of tamimus and to say, I'm not going to be naive. So indeed there is a famous Weltswart. Vayecher Yitzchak harad gedolah miyod, and Yitzchak trembled, even more so the Medrash says than he did by the Akedah. Vayomer, and he said, Mi eifayu. If you're Esav coming in now, who is the person that was here before? Mi eifayu had sad sayid, vayavali v'oichel mikal b'terem tov v'davarchayu. And I already blessed him. So according to the Medrash, Esav began to scream and yell now. And in his moment of passion, everything spilled out. And he began to yell how Yaakov Avinu purchased the b'chayah from him, which Esav considered cunning, even though he sold it to him outright. And now Yaakov does this to him, he tricks him with the blessing. And at this point, what does Yitzchak Avinu say? He says, Gam baruch yeh. But that bracha should stay. Zakt Rashi, Shalai Taimer, you shouldn't say, well, Ilula, Sharima, Yaakov Liaviv, where it's not that Yaakov had deceived his father, like not as a bracha, he would have never attained the blessings, and therefore the whole thing is a mistake. It should be a no. Lekach Hiskim, therefore the pasuk makes it very clear that Yitzchak agreed and now blessed him knowingly, as if to say retroactively those brachas should indeed take effect. The issue of how Yitzchak dealt with Esav, the lenient attitude, the sense of kiruv, the sense of giving him chashivos, is a complicated issue. We have the famous vart from the Malbim, Reb Aaron Zechon Levracha also has a similar mahalach. Yitzchak Avinu was hoping that Yaakov would sit in the Beis HaMedrash and learn. And Esav would be the person to deal with the world. Esav would be the person to be Mekadosh Shem Shemayim in the world. Esav, who was a man of the world, so powerful, so strong, had such a witty tongue, he would travel from town to town, from place to place, be Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. Perhaps he would be able to makar people to Yiddishkeit. He would support his brother Yaakov sitting in the Beis HaMedrash. That was Yitzchak's dream for Esav. He didn't fool himself as to who Esav was. But he was hoping that all of these koiches that Esav has within him would be channeled for the right thing. I mean, after all, Yaakov can't do that. Yaakov just knows how to sit in the Beis HaMedrash, and all due respect to him, but he's just not cut out for the things he would need Esav to do. In a sense, Yaakov was hoping that Esav and Yaakov would be a kind of Yisachar and Zavul, and therefore he tried to reach out to Esav, to be makar of him. Quite frankly speaking, Yitzchak didn't think that Yaakov was capable of doing more than sitting in the Beis HaMedrash. He thought that by nature Yaakov was just a very withdrawn, gentle person, and all due respect to him. But then when Esau comes screaming now, and he says that Yaakov managed to buy the Torah from him, now that Esau comes screaming after, unfortunately, the veil is lifted, and Vayechav Yitzchak Harad the Gedali felt the Pesach Shel Gehenim, and he suddenly understood who Esau really was. And now that Yitzchak hears that when Yaakov had to, he was able to outsmart Esau, so Yaakov understood his sitting in the Beis HaMedrash, that head down, always smile, that gentle kind of an attitude that Yaakov has. Now that Yitzchak understood that that was something he elected to do, he acted that way because he felt for the most part that was the right way to act, not because that was the only way he knew how to act. So Yitzchak said, I was mistaken all along. Gam Baruch Yeh. Your complaints against Yaakov indicate to me that indeed Yaakov is the one that deserves to be benched. Because all these brachos of power that I thought I would give you because you would use it for Kiddush, and now that I know who you really are, I don't want you to have it. And now that I know who Yaakov really is, that he is Ishtam Yoshev HaHolim, that he controls his Tamimus, that he uses it when necessary, and when not necessary, he does what he has to do. So down Baruch Yeh, let him have all these brachos of power. Yaakov is going to have to be the one to both sit in the Beis HaMedrash and to go out to the world and be Mekaras, and to go out and to support Klal Yisrael. If he has to, he can do it. So therefore, he's the one that should get the brachos, because in the final analysis, he's the one that's truly Allah. And that's the connection over here. Esau cries, how dare that Yaakov do this to me? And Yitzchak hears what Yaakov did to him and says, Oy bazoi gam baruch yeh. So he should be benched. Very good, Esau. You now revealed who you are, and you also revealed to me who Yaakov really is. When Yaakov Avinu walked in, the pasuk says that Yitzchak smelled the fragrance of his clothes, even though Chazal say he was wearing goat clothes to try to make his skin feel hairy, and normally that does not have the most pleasant of odor, but still Yitzchak felt over here the fragrance of Gan Eden. Chazal tell us when Yaakov walked in, Nichnas imoy reach Gan Eden. So why does the pasuk say that he smelled his clothes then? So it wasn't the clothes that he smelled Gan Eden. As far as his clothes was concerned, they did not have the best of fragrances. So Dr. Sfasemis, that a person through his actions acquires clothes for his neshama. We mentioned many times the Rav Chayes writes that he saw his father in a dream. His father was dressed in a crown and princely clothes, and he was standing there barefoot. And he asked his father why. And his father told him that the clothes in Gan Eden comes from the mitzvahs that a person did. And the one thing perhaps that I was lax in was going around and collecting money for others. I didn't walk from door to door to really help people, although I gave tzedakah. And therefore I don't have any shoes. So he asked his son if he can possibly go and collect money in his chus, so he acquires shoes for his father in Gan Eden. When the pasuk says Yitzchak Avinu smelled Yaakov's clothes, and Rashi asks, but his clothes were made out of goat skin and had a terrible odor. And the answer is he smelled Reach Gan Eden. Dr. Sfasemis, this is what Rashi means. Yitzchak Avinu suddenly was given a glimpse of Gan Eden. When Yaakov Avinu walked in, he smelled his clothes of Gan Eden, the clothes that was prepared for Yaakov Avinu in Gan Eden as a result of his mitzvahs, as a result of his way of life. It's not if a tzaddik is zoicha, then he begins to wear these ruchniistic clothes even down here on this world. And that was the madrega Yaakov Avinu reached. As a result, Yitzchak Avinu was able to perceive it. Look at these clothes. These are clothes of Gan Eden. Look how real his mitzvahs are, how earnest and sincere they are. You can already see the clothes of Gan Eden down here in this world. The Sfasemis explains that there's a chelik nefesh, ruach, and neshama to the neshama. There are three pchinos, three aspects. Through Torah, one is zeicha for clothes to the chelik haruach of his neshama. Through Ma'asim Tovim, one is zeicha to clothes for the chelik hanefesh of his neshama. And through the machshava and ratzain, to want to be good, one is zeicha to close to the most important part of his neshama, the part of the neshama simply called neshama. A bacher once came to a Rosh Yeshiva and confided with him that he has sveikos in Amunah. These machshavos that make him doubt are driving him totally out of his mind. The Rosh Yeshiva tried to work with the bacher. He explained to him every Yid has a natural Amunah. These are sveikos, only chitzoniyistic machshavos that come from the Yetzer Hara, not to make much of it, but when he saw that it wasn't working, he suggested that the bacher go to the Skreiter Rebbe Zchaim Levracha. The Rebbe asked the bacher how he sets his watch. Now in those days, you had wind-up watches that were almost 100% accurate, but every single day you had to wind it up and sometimes adjust it by a minute or two that it would be off for every 24 hours. And the bacher happened to mention that there were church bells that would ring across in his dormitory room at exactly 8 o'clock in the morning. And that's how he would adjust his watch accordingly. The Rebbe told him to adjust his watch in a different way. And his machshavos stopped. There was something called a koyach hapoyel b'nifal, meaning that the things that we do, areas where we draw our energy from, where we adjust any alignment in the way we think and the way we act, has an effect on us. The Rebbe Melech once did not like a certain melamed that taught his child because he said he feels from what the child is saying that this melamed had a Rebbe who read a book that he shouldn't have read in certain inyanim of hashkafis, and they investigated and turned out it was right. So we see that the more sensitive it becomes, and in effect the greater the kedusha, the more the sensitivity to things that are contrary to kedusha. We've mentioned many times that the Baal Shem Tov said that if he sees a musical instrument, he will tell you exactly who made the instrument and what his machshavos were when he made it. And the Kamana brings this and he says how much more so can the Baal Shem Tov tell you if he heard a nigun, who is mechaber that nigun or who is singing that nigun. If it comes from kedusha, then it's a powerful force of tshuva, and if it comes from the opposite of kedusha, it's a powerful force in the opposite direction of Rahman al-Islam. Indeed, the Gemara tells us one of the reasons that Acher became an apikairos was they would hear him whistle or sing to himself certain Greek songs. Now, we see that Yitzchak Avinu gives very precise instructions to Esav. V'ata, and now, Kapitel Chazayin, Pasuk Gimel, Sama Kelecha, take your hunting kelim, take Telyecha, V'kashtecha, V'tzei Asada V'tzudu Litzayim, and go out to the field with your bow and all of your equipment, and hunt the game for me. Why does Yitzchak have to give instructions to Esav as to what kelim he needs for the hunting? I mean, Esav was the expert hunter. Yitzchak Avinu had to instruct Esav exactly what he needed, what paraphernalia he needed, what he had to put into his kit to go out and catch an animal. And of course, the next pasuk, V'yaseli matamim, and prepare for me a tasty dish, kasha ahavti, as I love, also sounds a little bit beneath what we would consider the stature of Yitzchak. That sounds more like Lahav Laupe Alpayim of Dullah stories that are said about ancient kings who stood there holding a big pulka or a piece of roasted meat and demanded who made this, and a person's future in life depended on whether or not his particular dish met with the approval of the king's taste buds. So is this Yitzchak Avinu talking over here about Seli Matamim Kasher Ahavti? Go and make me a tasty dish that I love. Remember, just the right amount of barbecue sauce. It doesn't seem consistent with any tzaddik, not to mention the others. Not to mention Yitzchak Pachad, Yitzchak the Koyach HaGvura. So it's interessant, there is almost an identical mahalach that we find in the Sefer Be'er Mayim Chayim and also in the writings of Reb Shamshon Folhersh. Both of them explain that Yitzchak knew very well that Esav was different than Yaakov. Why then all the attention to Esav? Why all the love he showered on Esav? Yitzchak's ultimate hope and dream was that Esav should use all of his koiches, all of his tremendous physical strength, in service to Yaakov, so that Yaakov should be able to sit and learn Torah. That was Yitzchak's dream. So what was Yitzchak really saying to Esav over here? He was trying to explain to Esav that you're making a mistake. You look at Yaakov who sits in the Beis Medrash from morning until night, and you've decided that service for Hashem is not for you. You have decided your life is out there in the field with the bow and arrow. Given that that is what you're going to do,
You see, that is the nati of your life, the immense strength that you're applying to the field. But you can take that very strength, you can take that very bow and arrow, and you can turn it into a chayfetz of avdus Hashem. If you do it right, with the right machshavos, with the right purpose, with the right incentive. A chassid once came to the Chedush Yerim and complained, Rebbe, my heart is so heavy on me, I must leave Torah now and go into business. He had been in Koil for many, many years after he had gotten married. The Chedush Yerim began to yell at him. He said, what did you say? You're leaving Torah to go into business? Choshen Mishpat is the biggest part of Shulchan Aruch. That's the problem. People think when they go into business, they're leaving Torah. Whether in his particular situation he should have left or not is a different issue. But given that he is leaving, how can you make a statement like that? You're leaving Torah. Choshen Mishpat is the biggest part of Shulchan Aruch. You're going into business, you have all of Hilchos Bekad, all of Hilchos Halva, all of Hilchos Geneza and Gezela and paying workers on time, not to mention Hilchos Ribbis, which is in Yeridea. You're not leaving Torah to go into business. Now is the test whether you can implement the Torah that you learned. Chas v'sholom to say, I'm leaving Torah. And this was the message that Yitzchak Avinu wanted to teach Esav. Esav was not going to sit in the Beis HaMedrash from morning until night the way Yaakov Avinu did. He wasn't asking whether he should go out into the field or not. Yitzchak knew that he's going out into the field. But Yitzchak tried to teach him how you can prepare a bow and arrow l'shem Shemayim also. There was a member brought down in the Sefer Asara Mamoros, Chanoich, the tzaddik Chanoich, who went up to Shemayim with his guf, Toifer in Olamaya. He used to sew shoes. Val called Tzira B'Tzira, and every stitch, because he wasn't stitching shoes. This was just in his particular situation a manifestation of the Yashua Sashchina that was within him. If you take that bow and arrow, and you're going to use it to provide for Yaakov, and you're going to remember that there is a Rabbeinu Shalom, and you're going to apply that to every single time you pull that string of the bow for whatever reason, and you use it for the purpose of Avdus Hashem, then Esav, you are not leaving Torah. Then given who you are, this is your way of serving the Rabbeinu Shalom. That is the point that Yitzchak tried to make to Esav. So he told him, gather up your weapons, take your daily occupation, take the gains that you play for yourself, and use it to fulfill the mitzvah of Kibbutz. Prepare a dish for me. Use it as an expression of love for a benevolent purpose, for your old father, and you will see that you will bring a Kiddusha into what you're doing. Then you will not be running away from Yaakov when you pick up that bow and arrow, but you will feel the Rabbeinu Shalom on the field as well. And prepare for me a tasty dish such as I love. Bring it to me that I may eat, so that my soul may bless you. So that my soul may bless you. Yitzchak made it clear. He wanted food that his nefesh should have enough from, not just his guf, or maybe just his nefesh, and the guf is irrelevant. In other words, he wanted food that was prepared the kedusha, the tahara, the Shem Hashem should be said over it, just a kavanah l'Shem Hashem. And if you give me this kind of a food that was prepared, even the animal trapped, shachted, cooked, salted, and spiced l'Shem Shemayim, then I will feel it. And if I will feel it, I can transmit it to you. When the Rebbe of Melech was not feeling well, in his later years, he refused to eat anything. His Chassidim, his family begged him that the Rebbe of Melech was Isaac and his Tanesim, and finally he said, if you bring me a certain dish that I once had, I'll eat it. It was rather strange for the Rebbe of Melech to talk this way. He remembered a certain dish that he once had. So they asked him, where did you have this dish? He said, I was in so-and-so's house many years ago, and the Rebbetzin prepared a certain dish, and that dish had mamish Tan Gan Eden. So they ran to this Rebbetzin to beg for the recipe. And she seemed somewhat embarrassed. She said, yes, I remember when the Rebbe of Melech was here many years ago. I remember that I had absolutely nothing to serve him. We were very poor. All I had in the house was a pot, some water, and a little bit of flour. So I boiled up the water, I put in the flour, and I mixed it, and I closed my eyes, and I cried. I said, Rabbeinu Shalom, I have nothing to serve the tzaddik. Please, I said, you put in the tam of Gan Eden in this food. I have no money for food to be able to spice it or to make it really taste good. And that's what I served the Rebbe of Melech. The Rebbe Melech said, yeah, that was the one time he namish felt the time of Gan Eden in food. Otherwise, he really has no appetite for anything else. The end of this is not chas v'sholom to blame anybody, but it's just the way our society works. In the olden days, when your Baba prepared the food and there was a tear in her eyes, that the enikol of the child should eat, l'shem shemayim, be an er l'chayid, that had an effect. The emunah in people's heart was different. Today we eat manufactured food that is done on an assembly line by workers who are standing there from all different parts of the world that are fine people. But are you going to tell me those minimum wage workers have a kavanah, anything similar to what your Baba had or what your mother had? When she said, I hope my child is going to be an erlich yid when she needed that dough or salted the chicken. Now, it's not chas v'shalom a time on today's mothers. For the most part, the Bnei Yisrael might nefesh themselves today to raise large families and they're Isaac and chinuch with every fiber of their being. And they live with Mesiras Nefesh, sometimes supporting husbands, sometimes just supporting the house and keeping it up from morning until night. We live in an extremely fast society and there's no time to even blink, never mind rest. So when chas v'shalom saying, well, add on to your list of everyday chores that you start baking bread. That's not chas v'shalom what we're saying. It's no one's fault that the society that we live in works in the way that it does. But by the same token, we have to have an appreciation to what once was. We may have a better hashgacha, but less of a heart. And the little things that we still do, simple things. If we take a moment to explain the Ben Leim Chaim, and we say that we are doing this l'shem Hashem, that they have in a year in a kavana, so that it should have a koyach apel benifal, that the recipient of this service, whether it's setting a table, whether it's making a bed, whether it's dressing a child, whether it's bringing home that paycheck, if our kavan is that we take a moment to verbalize this and say, I hope this is mashpia yirah shamayim and a shefa chayim for my family and for all of Klal Yisrael, then who knows what kind of a koyach that machshava has. And that's what Yitzchak was teaching Yaakov. Yes, he was telling him how to pick up his bow, how to pick up his arrow. He was telling him how to trap the food, how to bake the food, how to cook the food, how to spice the food. Not in terms of how the food physically should appear on the outside, but how to put the heart and the neshama into the food. And if Yitzchak listened, had he done it right, he would have wound up doing tshuva the same way Yishmael did tshuva during the days of the Ram Avinu. However, Esav never really listened. As a matter of fact, after Yitzchak finished his whole drasha and gave all of these instructions of Vaseli Matamim Kasher Ahafti, what does the next pasuk say? Rivka Shemas. And Rivka heard all of this. If anything, it should have said Vatishma Rivka. What's Shakti Rivka Shemas? So the Ben Chaim, the pasuk wants to stress over here. Yitzchak gave this whole shiur to Esav, directed to Esav for Esav to learn and for Esav to understand. Esav didn't think twice about what his father said, just he went charging out. And if anyone heard, it was Rivka. That's the stress of the Rivka Shemas instead of the Tishma Rivka, that instead of Esav hearing, the pasuk is saying the only one who really heard what Yitzchak said was Rivka Shemas. She said, now I will prepare the food according to Yitzchak's instructions. As far as Esav is concerned, the pasuk says, V'yelech Esav asad elot tzayid lahaviyah, in Chazal Darshan, he went out with the intent to start with, but if it doesn't come easy, he's going to steal or rob. He didn't hear one word of what his father told him. It's like the famous story they say that a Yidden once came to Rabbi Yelavin Zochayin Levracha. And she complained that her husband was not treating her as derech eretz. He's obnoxious, he's rude. She was mamash crying. So Rabbi Yelavin said, I'm in a difficult situation. Because if I speak to your husband, he'll understand that you came and he'll get even more angry. But he said, I have an idea. I know that your husband comes to my Tuesday night, Chodesh Shir. So I'll stress in the Shir the importance of Kavod Ishtay. And Rabbi Yelavin did that. But he noticed that this person just sat in the back and it didn't faze him. Like if he was worried, maybe he's going to realize he's talking to him. He wasn't even listening. Or he had it look like, yeah, this is an important drasha. So-and-so and so-and-so ought to hear this. But it had nothing to do with him. And the amusing part of it was that after everyone left the shir, that this was Zalman Melsa, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, who had a wife, a tremendous tzedekah, the famous Rebbe Tzendela Hinder. And the covet that he accorded her was legendary. He was known throughout Yerushalayim. He was the symbol of respect of Shalom Bayis. Rabbi Zalman came over to Rabbi Yelavin and he said, it's important for me to hear that Shir talk. A lot of things now I realize I have to stress and better myself in the union of covet for my Bnei Bayis. So that's what the pasuk is saying. Yitzchak cried his heart out to Esav. And at the end of the shir, the Rivka Shenas. Rivka was the one who heard, who understood now how important it is to prepare everything. As far as Esav was concerned, he went out to steal and rob from the first person he would meet. Furthermore, the Ber Maim Chaim explains that Rivka conveyed this in her message to Yaakov and in her urging him to grant the opportunity and bring the food to his father. Rivka Amar El Yaakov b'no leimar. Because Yaakov right away said, why would I do something like this? I can't steal the brachas. It's not for me. Why should I fool my father? So Rivka explained to him, I heard what your father was saying. Your father poured his heart out. And he said the future of Klal Yisrael is in your hands now. You have to prepare the idea and the concept of being Mekadesh and Shemayim to every aspect of your being. He told your brother how to prepare food. This is the food that Yitzchak wants. This is going to bring the bracha for Klal Yisrael. And I know for a fact that Esav heard nothing. He has no intention to listen to Yitzchak. You're not robbing anything from your father. You're bringing your father what he wants. He's not going to get what he wants if Esav goes. And that's what the pasuk repeats and stresses. That Rivka explained, your father said, because Rivka explained to Yaakov the whole shir that Yitzchak gave to Esav, that Esav didn't listen to. And when Yaakov is still hesitant, so she said, listen to me, my son. The Ata now, your job is to do tshuva. Do tshuva, prepare yourself, cleanse yourself so the bracha should be chal. You go and you bring me the tzayim. And Rashi stresses the fact that Rivka was permitted to take this because this is a t'nai in her ksubah. In other words, she had listened to the shir. And Yitzchak had explained that if there's an ounce of gazela in the food, the koyach ha'poel b'nifal will be devastating in the children. And she went on to repeat the whole shir, and she said, do me a favor, just bring me the tzayim, and I will prepare the dish in such a way that your father will love it. I will put in the kavana, I will put in that kiddusha, that tam gan eden, that the Amalek Yiddish Babas were able to do. Rivka was not acting out of animosity to Esav. She was acting out of fulfilling what her husband's real wishes were. Zeharaya, I would like to be in the Saimas of Hela de Gevarch Miyar Chaim HaKadosh. Rivka told Yaakov, run for your life. Esav wants to kill you. Rivka told Yitzchak a different story. She said, Katzi b'chayanit nei b'nei ches. Yaakov cannot marry one of these girls. He has to go someplace else. How come she didn't tell Yitzchak the truth, that Esav wants to kill him? So because that would have been Lashon Hara on Esav. To Yaakov, she had to say it in order to warn him. But what heter did she have to say to Yitzchak that Esav wants to kill him? That would have been Lashon Hara. And Rivka Imenu does not speak Lashon Hara, not even on Esav. Did you ever wonder who you are? Did you ever say to yourself that I'm living a life of contradiction? My heart seems to swing like a pendulum in one way or another. Sometimes my heart is full of emunah. I feel so very close to the Bari Olam, and sometimes machshavos go through my heart that I can't believe such thoughts can even be entertained, even in a vague, abstract, distant way. And sometimes people get frustrated when they begin to wonder, am I a tzaddik, or am I a rasha, or am I a little bit of both? A little bit of both sounds very complicated. A tzaddik has his past set before him. A rasha, okay, he's on a dead-end street, so he does tshuva. But a little bit of both sounds very confusing and very, very difficult to untangle. This feeling of contradiction is not unique, and essentially is common. It has to do with the chetei tzadas, the teruvos of toivera, but this is the pain that Rivka felt. But you write to Rabbanim Bekirba, she passes a Beis HaMedrash. Yaakov so desperately wants to bang and get out. She has a child, such a natural masamid. Even before he's born, he wants to learn. Then she passes a house of an avodah zarah, and again the baby is pounding to get out and let me in. This was frightening to her. I can deal with a tzaddik, and I can even deal with a rasha. But a mixture of the two seems very disillusioning. How do you deal with it? The Telech Lidrash is Hashem. she went to ask, should I be terribly worried about this? Is there something wrong with me? Am I a schizophrenic that one day my heart is full of emunah and betachin and Hashem and I know whatever the Rebbe Hashem does is good, and the next day I feel like I'm in a free fall and that the world is hefka? And the answer that she got is, you have nothing to worry about. Those conflicting feelings is perfectly normal. It is the battle between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara that is within every single Yid. There's nothing strange about you. There's nothing queer about you. This is our avodah, to work out these steelers that are naturally planted within us. Let's listen to the answer that Rivka got, the way the Sefer Teres Avos explains it from the Slonim Rebbe's Chaim Levach. By Yisrael to Habanim Bekirba, and the children moved lustily against each other. That's how Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch explains it. The tremendous drive, going in different directions. Im came Lomazeh mercy. Why am I thus? Who am I? Who is the child that is within me that is so confused? V'telech lidrosh es Hashem. Banim, we find in the Svarim, refer to the machshavos of a person. Al pidrosh v'yisroitetu habanim bekirba, the machshavos of a person are going in different directions. How do I deal with that? V'yomer Hashem lo shnei goyim b'vitnech. Perfectly normal. There are two goyim b'vitnech, a reference to the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. In other words, the answer to this person who feels this hypocrisy within himself, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not fooling yourself or anyone else. You have both a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara. So does everyone else. And each one is pulling in a different direction. And it's a tug of war where each day someone else is winning. One day the Yetzer Tov wins, one day the Yetzer Hara wins. One day you're in the Rishus of the Yetzer Tov, the next day you're in the Rishus of the Yetzer Hara. The main thing is that at the end of the day, it should be the Rav, Yavod, Tzoyer. The older one should serve the younger one. Now, between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, who is the older one and who is the younger one? The Yetzer Hara is the older one. A person is born with his Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Tov only comes when you become a Chuyev B'mitzvah. The Yetzer Hara is with us right away from the beginning. He's called a Melech Zakein Zexil. And the Yetzer Tov only comes later. So the main thing is that the last chapter should be the Rav Yavod Tzoyer. That the old Yetzer Hara, the Melech Zakein Zexil, the Yetzer Hara that was with us from day one, should serve the younger Yetzer Tov, which we pick up a little bit later in our life. But along the way, there are battles, and there are swing battles one way or another. And it's never quite the same. And one time one side is on the offensive, and sometimes the other side is on the offensive. The issue is the war. You take it one battle at a time. You expect to win every single battle. There are those who can, but for most people, it's back and forth. And the issue is who wins at the end. That doesn't mean that you're allowed to donate a day to the Yetzer Hara and say, well, being that it's back and forth, today I'll do whatever I want, look at whatever I want. But it means to say that you try your best and be expected to take a loss here and there. One day your heart is full of emunah and chizuk and betachin, the next day you're frightened. Okay, today the Yetzer Hara has control, so you battle back. Battle to take back the key position. It's not that you're living a contradictory life, that you're not realistic with yourself. When you had emunah, it was full of emunah. Today the Yetzer Hara takes control. So you take it back the next day. And who comes out first? The Yetzer Hara does. The Yetzer Rishayin Admoini. He comes out red. The Yetzer Hara comes completely assembled. The Yetzer Hara comes complete. He's made betachlus hashleimus. He's missing nothing. And afterwards, the Achrei came, and only afterwards the Yotzach. So remember, the Yetzer Hara is here first, and you have to take control from him. But the Yetzer Tov has some advantages on his own. He may not come fully assembled. He doesn't come completely mature. The Yetzer Tov sort of grows on us. As we get older, it gets stronger and stronger. But the Yetzer Tov has a taina, the Yodoi Oichezes, the Akev Esav. His hand grasping the heel of Esav. The heel refers to the end of life. The Yetzer Tov always reminds the person, Soif Kosoif. One day you're going to be an old man or an old lady. And what then? One day you're going to look back at this life and you're going to realize that it's all transient, also temporary, and now you're going to have to deal with a life that lasts forever. What do you have to say for yourself? What are you going to have to say for yourself? And if everything works out, that's what you're going to have, that time period of looking back. So don't you think you ought to prepare for it, and prepare for it now? Whatever now means, whatever your stage in life is today. Even when you want to do tshuva and you want to battle the Yetzer Hara, it's not easy. Because sometimes it is difficult to identify enemy positions. He's tricky, the Yetzer Hara. Very often he comes in the guise of, here's this great mitzvah. Throw that rock through that Russia's window. Here's this great mitzvah. Go out there and help that person, and don't let your family get in the way. Very confusing. How do I know sometimes which is the Yetzer Tov, which is the Yetzer Hara? Yes, the Rebbeinu Shalom knows that it's difficult to discern sometimes. That's part of the character of the Yetzer Hara. He's a Deyatzayir. He knows how to trick people, and you just have to be careful. You just have to keep asking for the Siyata D'Shmaya. He is Ish Sodeh. He takes you out to the wide open field. The Yetzer Hara suggests, listen to me. Lift those restraints on yourself. Take those shackles off. Follow me and you will be free out on the field, the wide open field. Taste the beauty of the world. Follow me. But the truth is, if you follow him, he'll lead you nowhere. And his freedom out there in the open field only means it's going to rain and pour on you and you'll be left in the mud. Broaden your horizons. And all of a sudden you realize that you're spread so thin and the tigers are getting you nowhere. If anything, you're more shackled now than you ever were. The Yaakov Ishtam, the Yetzer Tov, he doesn't have these offers. He can't say, come, I'll show you the world. He just says, take it day in, day out, one benching at a time, one mitzvah at a time, 1 hour of learning at a time, one Shmei Esrei at a time. Hoylach b'tmimus. I'm not offering you big tithes and big lusts and big excitements. Just follow me and be consistent. At the end of the day, Yoshev Oyholim. If you follow me, you'll be in the right tent. In other words, the Yetzer Hara is offering you the wide open field. Then suddenly you realize that's who you are, in a wide open field without any protection, without any sense of direction. And those tithes that seem so tempting wither away and you're left with nothing. Only problem. And it's that appeal of you're out in the open suddenly leaves you so vulnerable, so left with nothing. Not even a place to call home. The Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev Oyholem. The real tent is security, is light, is simcha, amunah, chizuk, betachon. The pasuk in Iyov says, "Behiloi neiroi alai roishi." Neiroi, says Rashi, is a lashon of or and simcha, a lashon of light and happiness above my head, covering my head. The real tent, the tent that Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev Oyholem is referring to, is a tent of simcha and amunah and betachon that doesn't come through an advertisement of some exotic vacation out of the field where the Yetzer Hara offers. It comes with being consistent day in, day out. But ultimately, if you follow the Yaakov Ishtam and you're tmimistic in every mitzvah that you do, then the final result is going to be Yoshev Oyholem. You will be in this tent of security, this tent of chizuk. But again, your contradictions are not hypocrisy. It's the normal growth process. And when you find yourself in the Reshus of Admoini, the red one, which refers to the Resichas Hadam, the bubbling of the blood of Taiva, don't say, oh, what happened, I became a Rasha. Rather say the Rasha within you is trying to take control. Strike back. Don't get disillusioned. Adarab. Get motivated. And the end is in that light, the Tikach Rivka's Big Day Esav. Yaakov, explains the Chiddushei Yarim, on his own right, didn't need the bracha from Yitzchak. Yaakov was roi me'atzmai for brachas. But Rivka saw that it's not just Yaakov who needs the bracha, it's all future generations of Klal Yisrael that need the bracha. And Rivka saw that means all future generations of all different kinds of Yidden, including Yidden in Galus, who will be wearing the clothes of Esav. Rivka wanted Yitzchak to give a bracha, not to Yaakov in the form of Yaakov Avinu. Rivka wanted Yitzchak to give the bracha to Yaakov dressed in Big Day Esav, so that those Yidden who find themselves in the clothes of Esav throughout the chain of Galus should also be able to find a bracha within them. That when Yaakov Avinu came in to Yitzchak for the bracha, the pasuk says, "Vayigash vayishakloi vayorach es reyach begadav," and he came near and he kissed him and he smelled the fragrance of his clothes. The Medrash dashes begadav from the lashon of baigdav. Baigdav means betrayers. Even the Rishayim and Klal Yisrael, Yitzchak Avinu smelled them. And he saw how ultimately people who were written off as the worst apikasim of Ma'aseh Nefesh themselves at the last moment. The Medrash brings the story of Yosef and Meshisa. Yosef and Meshisa betrayed Klal Yisrael and he became one of the Messiavnim. He joined the ranks of Antiochus. When Antiochus first came to the Beis HaMikdash, he hesitated entering. He was frightened. His predecessor, a general by the name of Hilodurus, tried entering the Beis HaMikdash, and miraculously a heavenly kind of a horse appeared with riders on it, and they beat him, and he was carried out blind and unable to speak. The Kohen Gadol was misfoul for him. Antiochus really didn't want to take any chances. But Yosef Meshisa told him, what are you worried about? It's nonsense. So Antiochus told him, you know what, you go into the Beis HaMikdash and take out whatever you want, and whatever you take out is yours to keep. So Yosef Meshisa ran in, and he came out with none else than the menorah itself. And Antiochus was amazed by the beauty of the menorah, and he said, no, I changed my mind. You can't keep that. That's fit for a king. Yosef Meshisa felt terribly betrayed. Here he had gone into the Beis HaMikdash, nervous himself, took the bold move of walking out with the menorah. Now Antiochus wouldn't even let him keep it. He wouldn't keep his promise. And suddenly Yosef Meshisa had a very sick feeling in his stomach, and that is that by betraying the Rebbeinu Shalom, at the end, he would be the one that's going to lose out. The Yetzirah that promised him all of the glory is going to betray him, just like he betrayed his creator. So Antiochus said to Yosef Meshisa, look, leave that here, go out and take something else for yourself. Yosef Meshisa said, no, I have no right to enter the Beis HaMikdash. Antiochus said, what? I order you to go in and take whatever you want for yourself. Yosef Meshisa said, I sinned against Hashem once. I'm not going to do it again. Antiochus offered Yosef Meshisa a tremendous job in the Greek government. He would be the one to collect the taxes and get to keep a hefty commission. The envy of anybody in the whole Greek Empire. Yosef Meshisa said, I betrayed Hashem once. I'm not going to do it again. At the end, Yosef Meshisa was threatened, and Antiochus carried out his threat. He put him into a machine that grinds up wood. While Yosef Meshisa died this horribly torturous death, he kept on saying that he deserved it for betraying the Rebbeinu Shalom. On Yosef Meshisa and those like him, and there were many, the Medrash dashes the pasuk, Vayorach es reach begadav, Vayorach es reach boigdav. Yitzchak felt the fragrance even of the betrayers of Klal Yisrael and the Mesiras Nefesh that they displayed at the end of their lives. The koyach that the Yosef Meshisas and the many like him had. The Blues of Rebbe Chalavracha told the story of a capo who was from the worst of the worst, even before the war. He represented Apikursis. He went to sleep every night thanking God he was an atheist. And when it came Yom Kippur, they went over to him and they asked him if he could somehow provide for them to work in such a way that they didn't have to be Mechal Yom Tif. For some strange reason, he arranged it for them. In the middle of their scrubbing without water, the Nazis came in with a huge platter of meat, cakes, delicacies unheard of from a different universe in that time. And they said, Jews, here, see how kind we are, eat. And the capo stepped forward and said, Jews don't eat on Yom Kippur. The Beluzhev Rebbe said he could not believe it. This man was the head of the Bundis, of the communists. He breathed Apikursis. The Nazi pulled out his revolver and said, you eat first. He said, Jews don't eat on Yom Kippur, and he was shot on the spot. These these neshamas in Olam Haba that are zoicha to a Gan Eden beyond our imagination, it all comes through the bracha of Vayarech Esreach Begadav. This is the whole point of Yaakov Avinu receiving the bracha in the big day Esav. As the Nesiva Shalom explains this, Yitzchak's bracha was intended even to the Yidden who wore the big day Esav, the Pintele Yid, the little pilot light that burns in every single Yid even though the main flame appears to be off, that binds him with HaKadosh Baruch. As the Nesiva Shalom explains, Yemes, Yitzchak Avinu was trying to find his koyach within Esav. He wanted Esav to be mahapech all of his koyachas hara l'tayv. Yitzchak Avinu had assumed all along that there's Yaakov and there's Esav, and they have two different shitas. Esav goes into the Olam Hagashmi and is mahapech at l'tayv, and Yaakov lives a ruchniistic a life totally severed from Gashmias. And therefore Yitzchak thought that Esav is the one who needs the real bracha. And all along, Yitzchak channeled himself to give his koyach habracha to such a person who falls into the Gashmias and then converts it to Ruchnias. At the end, it didn't go to Esav, but it went to those amongst Yaakov who appear like Esav. And that should be a chizuk for us. That regardless of how many days the Yetzer Hara wins the battle and how low it appears we have fallen, and how deep we are in the clothes of Esav, Yitzchak's bracha has been intended precisely for us.
This shiur is distributed by Koladas, 11 Stay Chemet Street, Yerushalayim. For donations, please call 02-5383-999. Fax 02-538-0267. Post Box 57035.